Have you ever wondered why the quietest men often possess the loudest, most chaotic interiors? The Stoic, the silent, the man whose face is a mask of indifference, he is a master of emotional censorship, a self-appointed warden of his own inner world. But beneath that carefully constructed facade, the mind, that vast ocean of unconscious drives and desires, refuses to be contained. It whispers secrets not through his lips, but through the subtle, involuntary ticks of his hands, the momentary flickers in his eyes, the almost imperceptible changes in his posture. This is the language of the shadow, a silent dialect that bypasses the ego's watchful guard. The male ego, especially in its most wounded state, is a fortress built on the shaky ground of perceived strength and self-sufficiency. It demands a performance of control, a narrative where vulnerability is a weakness to be purged, and emotional truth is a liability. But the shadow, that primordial repository of all he has rejected, denied, or pushed away, is a rebel. It will not be silenced. Instead, it finds 1,000 tiny cracks in the ego's armor, leaking out in what we might call a Freudian slip of the body and mind. This is not about a verbal mistake. It's about the unconscious speaking through the body, revealing the man behind the mask. The man who says, "I'm fine," while his jaw clenches, his shoulders tense, and his hands are balled into fists. The man who claims he's not jealous while his eyes dart away from the object of his envy, his body angled as if to flee a threat he refuses to name. This is the psychological dance of projection, the unconscious act of casting out one's unintegrated parts onto others. He sees his own insecurities in you, his fears of abandonment as your neediness, his anger as your overreaction. He is so terrified of acknowledging his own internal landscape that he must externalize it, making you the canvas for his unlived, unacknowledged emotional life. When he accuses you of being too much or crazy for wanting emotional intimacy, he is not describing you, he is describing his own terrified psyche, his own inability to tolerate the very depths he sees reflected in your eyes. This is the tragic paradox of the unexamined man. In his desperate flight from his own shadow, he creates the very chaos he seeks to avoid. Consider the man who prides himself on his rationality and logical thought. He may be the most afraid of his own passions and instincts. His seemingly calm demeanor is a carefully maintained wall, a bulwark against the raw, irrational forces within. When you introduce an element of emotional chaos or challenge his rigid worldview, he doesn't respond with anger, but with withdrawal, with cold logic, with a sudden suffocating silence. His withdrawal is a form of aggression, a rejection not of you, but of the emotional truth you represent, a truth he has long suppressed. This is a man whose inner world is a battlefield, and his silent withdrawal is the retreat of a wounded warrior. The archetypal king, archetype in its shadow form, is not a tyrant who roars, but a cold, distant figure whose power is exercised through neglect and emotional absence. His silence is a weapon, his indifference a form of control. He creates a vacuum, a space where your emotions are invalidated by their very existence. This is a different kind of wound, a different kind of trauma. It teaches you to question your own feelings, to shrink your needs, to make yourself small in order to fit into his emotionally constricted world. But this is where the path to your own individuation begins. You must reclaim your emotional sovereignty, refusing to be defined by his refusal to engage. Your feelings are not a flaw to be corrected, but a compass pointing you toward your own truth. This is the sacred task, to be fully and unapologetically yourself, even when he cannot bear to look upon the very thing he fears most, your vibrant, untamed, emotional reality. A man's prophecy, his inner feminine is the vessel for his unlived emotional life, the soul image he carries within. For many men, particularly those raised in cultures that devalue feeling and prize ruthless control, this feminine aspect is exiled, relegated to the deepest, most shadowed corners of the psyche. It does not disappear, it merely goes underground, where it begins to exert a profound and often destructive influence. It is from this unacknowledged wellspring of emotion that his unspoken truths and silent projections emerge. When he cannot connect to his own capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and gentle affection, he will seek it out in a woman, often without recognizing what he is doing. He will project his anima onto you, elevating you to the status of a savior, a muse, or a sacred object meant to fill the vast, aching emptiness inside him. The danger of this projection is that you are no longer seen for who you are, but for what you represent to his unconscious. He worships the image, not the reality. And when you inevitably fail to live up to this impossible ideal, when you show your own flaws, your own shadow, your own humanity, the same man who once idolized you will cast you down with a savage swiftness. His disappointment is not in you, but in the shattering of his own illusion. He resents you for not being the perfect vessel for his unlived emotional life, for forcing him to confront the chasm within himself. This is the tragic cycle of the unintegrated anima. It creates a pedestal, then a prison, and finally a profound sense of disillusionment. Think of the man who seeks a woman to fix him, to save him from his own demons. He is not looking for a partner. He is seeking a surrogate mother, a divine feminine to perform the shadow work he is too afraid to do himself. He may present as strong, even stoic, but his neediness is a silent roar, a parasitic emotional dependency disguised as admiration. He will hover, he will idealize, he will be all in until the moment you ask for reciprocity, for him to step into the role of a conscious, integrated partner. It is at this moment that his inner world screams a silent rejection, for your request forces him to confront his own profound lack of inner resources. This is not a failure of love, but a failure of the self. The Stoic philosophers understood the human mind as a fortress, but they also knew that a fortress must be defended from within, not merely from external threats. A man who uses Stoicism as a shield to deny his feelings is not a true Stoic. He is an emotional coward. True Stoicism, as Seneca and Marcus Aurelius knew, is not about the absence of emotion, but about the disciplined, conscious mastery of it. It is about understanding that while we cannot control the events of our lives, we can control our response to them. This requires deep self-knowledge, the very thing the emotionally repressed man avoids at all costs. His mask of indifference is a flimsy defense, a desperate attempt to appear invulnerable when he is in fact profoundly fragile. Your role in this dynamic is not to become his therapist or his savior. Your sacred task is to witness, to observe, and to refuse to be defined by his projections. When he grows cold, remember that his distance is not a reflection of your worth, but a measure of his own inner conflict. When he pulls away, you must stand in your own power, rooted in the certainty of your own value. Your freedom lies in your refusal to participate in his shadow dance. The man's emotional withdrawal, his silent treatment, his sudden shifts in mood, these are not mysteries to be solved, but a language to be decoded. He is not speaking about you, he is speaking about himself. He is revealing the parts of his psyche he cannot face, the wounds he has long tried to bury. And in this act of decoding, you reclaim your power. You cease to be a passive recipient of his unconscious chaos and become a conscious observer. This is the first, most vital step on the path of your own individuation, a journey not of finding a man to complete you, but of becoming so whole and self-possessed that no man's silence can ever diminish you. The unexamined male psyche is a complex landscape of denied needs and repressed emotions, a fortress built not of stone, but of silence. This silence is the most potent and insidious form of communication, for it forces the other person, you, to fill the void with your own anxieties, your own interpretations, your own projections. He says nothing, and in that nothingness, you are left to wonder, is it me? Did I do something wrong? This is the ultimate passive-aggressive act, a weaponized form of detachment that shifts the burden of emotional labor entirely onto you. He is a master of creating a vacuum, a space so empty of his own feelings that it pulls you into a maelstrom of self-doubt. The ego's relentless need for a predictable, manageable reality means it will do anything to avoid the unsettling chaos of the shadow. It seeks to control not just his own emotions, but yours as well. This is why a man who has not faced his own inner turmoil is often drawn to women who are emotionally expressive, only to then punish them for the very thing that initially attracted him. He sees in your vibrant emotional life a part of himself he has locked away. The initial fascination is a desire to feel what he cannot, but the subsequent repulsion is a fear that your emotional fire will burn down the fragile walls of his carefully constructed identity. He is terrified that your passion will ignite his own, releasing the very forces he has spent a lifetime repressing. His silent withdrawal is a panicked retreat from the possibility of his own emotional liberation. This dynamic is not a reflection of your worth, but a profound observation of his inner state. The man who is comfortable with his own emotional complexity, who has done the arduous and courageous work of facing his shadow, does not fear your feelings. He welcomes them as a mirror, an opportunity for deeper connection and understanding. He will not silence you with his silence. He will not invalidate your emotions with his emotional absence. Instead, he will meet your vulnerability with his own, not out of obligation, but out of the strength that comes from true self-possession. The absence of this reciprocal vulnerability is the clearest sign that he is not yet ready to be a partner, but is instead trapped in a battle with himself. Your path to liberation lies in a radical act of self-acceptance. You must accept that you cannot save him, you cannot heal his wounds, and you cannot force him to do the work he is not ready to do. Your energy is not a resource to be poured into his bottomless pit of need. It is a sacred current to be directed toward your own growth, your own healing, your own individuation. The Stoics called this inner freedom, tisaph apatheia. Not a state of apathy, but a state of inner calm, a detachment from the chaotic influence of external events, including the emotional chaos of others. You must become the mistress of your own inner fortress, so that no man's silence can ever breach your peace. This process is a form of shadow work for you. You must confront the part of yourself that seeks validation from his emotional responsiveness. You must face the fear of being alone, the terror of not being enough, the impulse to overfunction and overgive in a desperate attempt to earn his love. This is where your own deepest strength lies. By choosing to let go of the need for his emotion mirroring, you step into your own sovereign power. You learn to validate your own emotions, to trust your own instincts, to become your own source of certainty. His silence is not a void to be filled, but a sacred space in which you can practice the art of self-reliance. It is an opportunity to cultivate a deep, unshakable faith in yourself, independent of any external approval or emotional feedback. The true challenge of individuation is not to find a partner who is whole, but to become so whole yourself that you are no longer dependent on another person's emotional state for your own sense of well-being. This is the profound wisdom offered by the Stoics, who understood that true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering the self. Epictetus, the slave who became a philosopher, taught that our greatest freedom comes from distinguishing between what is within our power and what is not. A man's emotional availability is not within your power. Your response to his emotional absence is, this is not a cold detachment, but an act of sacred self-preservation. It is a form of shadow work for you, a confrontation with the parts of your own psyche that seek to be validated by an external source. The woman who has not done this work will be perpetually locked in a dance of anticipation and disappointment, constantly adjusting her emotional output to match his fleeting moments of presence. She will become a psychic chameleon, changing her colors to blend in with his emotionally barren landscape, slowly losing her own vibrant hue. But the woman who embraces her own inner sovereignty learns to stand in her own light, casting her own shadow and embracing its lessons. She becomes a force of nature, unmovable by the tides of his emotional ebb and flow. The man's silent withdrawal is a mirror, not of your lack, but of his own. He is showing you the depth of his unhealed wounds, the extent of his fear, and the profound void within his own soul. To interpret his behavior as a reflection of your own inadequacy is to fall for the oldest psychological trick in the book, the projection. He is not rejecting you, he is rejecting the very parts of himself he sees in you, his own capacity for feeling, for vulnerability, for authentic connection. The silent treatment is his unconscious way of saying, I am not equipped to handle this depth. And so, your response becomes your greatest strength. Instead of chasing, you learn to stand still. Instead of pleading, you learn to listen to the silence. Instead of internalizing his distance, you recenter yourself in your own truth. You learn to give yourself the emotional security you once sought from him. This is the ultimate act of self-love. You become your own source of validation, your own safe harbor, your own unshakable foundation. He may be a ship lost at sea, unable to navigate his own internal storms, but you are the lighthouse, rooted to the shore, burning brightly not for him, but for yourself. Your light is not a signal to save him, but a declaration of your own unwavering presence in your own life. This journey is not about winning a battle with him, but about winning your own freedom. It is about understanding that a relationship is not a place to complete each other, but a space where two whole individuals choose to walk beside one another. And if he is not capable of walking, you must have the courage to continue your path alone. The greatest act of empowerment is not in changing him, but in choosing yourself every single time. It is in the realization that your emotional worth is not a currency to be exchanged for his affection, but an inherent, sacred truth.